Well, hello everybody. So, we're still in the damn dungeon. The weather is just miserable, and to be quite honest with you, when it's this miserable outside, and I've been outside a lot working, when I get home the last thing I feel like doing is working out in it all night. But that is allowing me time to get some other things done. And it's a little easier to take right now because I know spring, well, I know it's supposed to be right around the corner. This month certainly isn't showing. We got really spoiled end of February with that nice week. At least I was able to get a lot done and a jump start on the spring for the project. That being said, we've been working on a draw knife for the last few videos. And I've shown you a few different ways that you can forge something without having the all the expensive stuff and all that good stuff. And but now I'm going to show you another forge that if you search YouTube, you're going to find them all over the place. People's homemade coal forges. And nothing real high-tech about them, but it's just the way it is. But this is where we are at right now with our draw knife. Doesn't look too much different than the last time, but we're flattened out on the back. We're rough ground on the bevel. And I left about 1/8 of an inch here that we're going to have to grind down after our heat treating process. I did that because if I ground it down too thin, there's a good chance I would either warp this thing real bad or crack it really bad when we go to do the quench and the heat treating. There'll still be some more grinding and stuff like that, but anyway, you kind of get the idea. You've seen this now, last couple of videos, you've seen it progress, but I got to heat treat this now. So that means I've got to get it above magnetic, and then I've got to quench it. Now, 1080 steel, if you read up on it, there's so many different opinions on what you should quench with. Supposedly for your thicker pieces, you can use water. From the information I looked up on the Heat Treater's Handbook, that's an app that you can get from either the Play Store or the App Store for your iPhone, if I remember the name of that right, or iTunes or whatever. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, you can get that app. It's the Heat Treater's Handbook, and it will actually give you a rundown of over 400 different types of steels and metals, the forging process, the heating process, the heat treatment process, and annealing. It actually gives you the temperatures and things like that. But what we want to do with this, I want to get this up around 1500 degrees. At that point, it's lost magnetism. It loses that at about 1425 degrees, but you got to go a shade higher with it to get a proper heat treat. Now, this is too thin for me to quench this in oil. I would run a pretty good risk of cooling it too fast or quenching it in water. I can't talk tonight. So I'd run the risk of quenching this in water, it being so thin. I don't want this thing to crack on me. So we're going to use whatever I have kicking around, because this one is for me. This is not one that's ever going to get sold. This is mine. And when I go to make these to sell them and whatnot, then we will go to an actual fast quench oil that I will have to buy from like McMaster's or somewhere like that. But for this, I'm just going to use peanut oil. Olive oil is probably a better choice, but I've got a ton of peanut oil around, so that's what we're going to use. I don't want to use used motor oil because that's a little bit too thick of an oil. The steel does want to be quenched fast. So, and the reason you quench it, you're trying to get that hardness. Now we're going to do it for 2 cycles, and then we will be heat treating it in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for a couple hours. And pulled out, we'll probably do it 2 cycles each. So anyway, to the main point of this video, I really don't feel like screwing around with a fire pit out in the yard to do this. So we're going to revisit a forge that I made years ago. This guy right here. And if you're wondering what this is, isn't that beautiful? Now, any of you guys who are swinging a hammer or anything like that, pounding on an anvil, you guys know what that I believe is a leg vise. I got this for free last weekend. For free. You get on eBay and look at what these darn things are going for. It's unreal, and that's what people actually bidding and watching, not just what the hopefuls want to get out of them. But anyway, a buddy of mine asked me to come over, help him move a stove up to the second story of his house. That was a good time, nice and heavy. And he deals in antiques, and I saw this thing sitting there, and I said, "What are you doing with that?" He goes, "Oh, some guy threw it in the back of my truck. They were going to get rid of it for scrap metal, and he knew I liked antiques, so he put it in there. He got it for free." I said, "Well, how much are you going to sell it for?" He goes, "Well, you want it?" I said, "Yeah, I want it, but what's your price?" He goes, "Oh, put it in the back of your truck. I got it for free." And I asked him 4 or 5 times. I said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And then I showed him what they were going for, and you know, he's a good buddy. He didn't even bat an eye. He says, "Yeah, go ahead and take it." So that is awesome. This will take a little bit of restoration, but it's not too bad. Anyway, I am rambling. I am rambling like a bastard tonight. I'm just kind of excited. We're getting another late start. It's a Friday, a little late at work. Gosh, it looks heavy. But anyway, to the main point of this video. So this is a coal forge I made a few years ago. And it used to have a door on it. Of course, I accidentally broke it. But this thing never really worked up to what it should have worked up to. This is a little too narrow and deep for what I want. I don't mind the narrow part, but it's a little too deep because a lot of the heat's going to be down by where the air comes in. So I could forge all right with it, but it just was not as nice as what I wanted. Now you can see down here, I've got a spot down here to where I stick that heat gun on, the same one I was using outside, the one that the heating elements don't work. That directs the air. I got a bunch of holes drilled in the plate there, and with this door on, it worked all right if I was forging with wood or barbecue charcoal. Did not work very well for coal. And the reason being, I couldn't direct that air. It was just too widespread. It just wouldn't get the coal burning hot enough. And of course, I'm forging with anthracite, so it needs a little more air than bituminous does. But anyway, what I want to do with this, I want to convert this over to a brake drum. And I have a couple options here. I can go with this guy here. Now it's nice with the brakes. Now this is just a rotor, not really a brake drum. But what's nice is these is they're really thick gauge steel. They take a lot of heat, they last a long time. And I can either use this one here, you can see how thin that is. And I'm kind of looking for a shallower fire pot so that I can heat the coal up over that, because I want my heat a little more up here, especially if we're going to try to be heat treating a long piece like this sitting on edge in the fire. I need to be able to heat the whole piece up. Now the handles I'm not as worried about, but it's more this blade part I'm really worried about. I want to get that heat treated well. And that being long, now this would be perfect for knives and stuff like that. It's the perfect size, but we've got to be able, so I want to be able to mount that up and get the fire just a little bit wider. Now, beggars can't be choosers. When we're in the barn finally, when we're in that shop, we'll have a nice old-time masonry forge, probably out of brick, and then I'll have a welded insert that sits down in it, and we'll actually have refractory linings and a proper two-year and all that. But the other option I have is this guy right here. It's another rotor. Pretty big one. This is off of a 8-lug truck. Now, you see how deep that pot is? It's kind of a little deeper than what I want it. I'm more looking to be able to get the fire up a little bit higher. So I'm probably going to go with that guy right there. And we'll see what happens. Well, what's going to kind of suck is you guys are going to get to see a grinding video here. Thomas will be really happy about that, as he loves that kind of thing. Going to have to grind these welds off, get this thing off of here. This is all cast, and this was one of my very first welding projects I ever did. I mean, it was one of my very early welding projects. I'm happy it hasn't fallen apart. I don't have air leaks where these pipes meet. As you can see the operation. Now down here, it's just a little 1/4-inch plate steel metal flapper that I can open and close. And that allows the ash to clean out the ash out of this thing. But anyway, I know I'm rambling on terrible here. So we're going to cut you guys to time lapse. I'm going to start grinding this thing off. I've got some protection set up around here because this dingy little hole, it would be really easy to burn this thing to the ground. Maybe. Now, there's too many good tools in here. I don't want to do that. But anyway, I'm going to get to grinding. I've got some metal set up here to keep the sparks contained, and we're just going to go with it. But anyway, I'll see you guys on the other side of it.
Once I heard a song so shallow and poor, I almost sang along all through her door, but I never did, I never could, and so it was extremely close. Once I turned my head away from you and the treasures that we held so well, I waited on trains to come to take me far away, wishing you well. Oh, farewell. This time I am still in your bed.
All right, there we have it. Pretty much just a junkyard forge. We got a few hours into this. Fortunately, all this stuff was built already. So our blower goes in, turn it on, air come up through there. This kind of worked out really nice and easy for me, simply because I had the other one built already. I didn't know what I was doing. It was my first one, real early welding project. I mean, I'm looking at some of my welds on here, and I'm still learning how to weld. I mean, I learn every time I strike it, you know, and it's funny, if I don't do it for a few months, I really have to sit and relearn it every single time. But anyway, so basically, classic junkyard brake drum forge, nothing real fancy. I think I showed you before, we've got our little ash door here on the bottom. That opens up to allow your ash out. Probably what I will end up having to do down the road, the steel on the bottom of this will probably burn out at some point. So I'm going to have to make like a, maybe out of some rebar, I'll just make a grate to go over that. And it's nice too, the rebar, it's something you can get a point down through there to break your clinkers up, because you will get them. Not as bad with the anthracite, but you're still going to get them. But you got a shelf for your coal, because so as you're going along, especially if you're forging with bituminous, and another thing about bituminous, which is kind of nice, you don't need as much airflow up through it as you do with the anthracite. Now I do have a supplier for bituminous coal nearby. I can get it by the 15-pound bag. I think it's like 14 bucks a bag. So it's not terrible, but it is kind of expensive. And to be honest with you, I really like how clean the anthracite burns. You don't have the sulfur content in it that you do in the soft coal. So it's kind of, you don't have to cook it off so much, and it's so close to coke already, there's not a lot of cooking off. But the downside of that is it doesn't bridge as well as the bituminous does, so it'll kind of cave in on itself a little bit more than the soft coal does. So it's a different kind of forging, but once you get used to it, it's really nice. And basically, we built this thing because I can get the brunt of that blade for this draw knife right over top of the fire. So when we go to heat treat this, we'll dome our coal up, we'll get it going good. And this will be placed just like this. We don't want to place it flat because of the temperatures we have to get it to, and we have one edge thinner. I want it on its spine so the heat can go up through the bottom of it. The thicker part's going to take a little longer to heat than the thinner part, but we're also kind of slowing it down. You'll see when we go to do it. But there's one big reason I wanted to make one like this, is so that I could be a little bit easier to do what I want to do with this right here. Now when we build the big one in the barn, when we finally get to that point, it's going to be, it'll probably be brick or field stone cemented together, probably about waist high. You'll see when we get to that point. But anyway, like I said, nothing real complicated, nothing real hard. Any of you can build this in your backyard or in your garage. And it's nice because it's small, it's light. I can pick this thing up and move it wherever I want to. And we'll have to test it. You know, it may not work worth a damn, but I think it'll be just fine. I also have a bit of a beefier blower if I need it, because we're kind of going down this bend and trying to shoot it back up. But it actually works. It sends a nice little airstream up through there, and that's definitely what you need. The old style worked all right for me if I was, like I said, if I was using wood or charcoal. You know, it would work just fine. But when I was trying to use coal in it, it was really hard to control where my hot spot was, because when you get used to a fire the certain way it is in your forge, you can really start to gauge where the hot spots are, where it's going to be best for you to get the heat you need out of it, and that makes a big difference. So, I mean, we'll keep this thing as long as it lasts, because it's just kind of handy. Say it's a nice day and I feel like doing it outside in the summertime, I can pull this out and do it outside, no problem. Very portable. So anyway, we're going to be going still all weekend. Hopefully it's not quite as blustery tomorrow, so we can do a good heat treating video, and then maybe by Sunday, if I'm lucky, we can be putting handles on this thing. I was going to go with leather on it, and I got looking at what I had for leather, and I'm not really happy with anything I have for it. So I do have some black walnut. We may do our handles out of black walnut. So anyway, take her easy, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one, and don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up if you feel like it. If you don't feel like it, that's fine. You guys have a good night.